What's going on there, guys? We back with another one, and we got a doozy on today with Stephen A. Smith going all the way in on LeBron James, no holds barred. And I want to talk about a lot of the things that he's discussing, man. We're going to get right into the footage. He was sitting down with Ryan Clark and Channing on the pivot, and he let it all go. He let it all go about LeBron. And I know LeBron recently got on his podcast or on Savannah James podcast, him and his boys. I believe Casanet was on there, and Savannah's co-host was with her. And he was like, dude, y'all always think people talking about y'all, but nobody's thinking about you. And many perceived that was a shot towards Stephen A. amongst others. So Stephen A. was asked by Ryan Clark his feelings towards LeBron and where they stand at today. And Stephen A. went all the way in. And also, Stephen A. Smith says LeBron only went up on a black man like that. He never has gone up against anybody that doesn't look like us like that. So let's check out what was said, and I'll be back.
You are makes me think about the altercation or when LeBron and you had the conversation courtside. You were been very honest about that interaction, and you said, okay, we don't like each other.
Right.
How do you feel you handled that situation overall? Are you proud of how that went?
I wouldn't use the word proud. I would tell you that I don't regret anything that I did in terms of handling the situation. I don't regret it now. And I would tell you my feelings haven't changed. I don't like him at all. He doesn't like me at all. I don't like talking about him because I think people think that I'm looking to talk about him. Like, LeBron's inside of Stephen A's head. If you don't ask me about him, I won't talk about him. You see what I'm saying? I got a job to do, and he will never interfere with my job. I'm going to be professional. This man is one, in my mind, the second greatest player to have ever played the game of basketball. He's a great ambassador for the game of basketball. He's an incredible role model. What he has done with himself, what he has done with his crew, it's beyond admirable. And he will always warrant the utmost respect. But everybody hasn't had the relationship that I've had. I'm in the media. I'm a commentator and pundit. I know the things that you've done behind the scenes. I know the things that you said behind my back. I know what you tried to do to derail me from being in the position that I'm in today. I know that if it were up to you, I'd have been stopped years ago. So it goes far deeper than I'll ever get into publicly. Knowing that, I still went on the air and was fair. And to me, the way he handled the situation, coming up to me, courtside, all right, fine, you're emotional, whatever. I don't know who's getting on you at home, and you might have felt compelled to do it. All right, fine. You reach on Saturday night in Boston. After that happens, you talking to RJ, Richard Jefferson, our colleague at ESPN. Good brother, your former teammate. Whispering in his ear, he said something about me as a father. I couldn't take that. But when that man went on Pat McAfee Show, just to insult me, that was the final straw.
Now we're gonna get back into the content, but I want Stephen A. Smith to know by him admitting this, LeBron wins the war of the minds, because this is exactly why LeBron did it. So the fact that you came out and acknowledged it and said that was the final straw, it sent you over the top and got you bent out of shape, was his whole reason for doing it. And another thing was, you talked about how all the bosses knew. That was the other point. I can go way above your head, because at the end of the day, it's about ratings. It's not about the power you think you have within a network. I can just go over your head, because who's going to turn down LeBron for an exclusive?
Bob Iger knows it. Jimmy Pitaro knows it. Burke Magnus knows it. Bosses at ESPN. Dave Roberts knows it. Rich Paul knows it. I'm sure, even though I haven't spoken to him directly, Maverick Carter knows it. The closest that I've ever come to backing up in my life has evaporated. I won't take one back step when it comes to him in life ever again, because I've done my job. He took it personal and took it to another level. To come on ESPN just to insult me with a show that comes on after me. We know what you were doing. So my attitude is, fine. Fuck it. This is how you want to do it? We good. Now we're in my lane. Because, make no mistake, it's my lane. LeBron trying to go up against me, you could try that, go in the shop. Just so y'all know, before anything happened, I volunteered to come on the shop. When I've been asked, I said, one condition, no edits. Air what you see. I'll happily come on. This is what I said at the time before any of that had happened. But he's not going to take me up on that offer because you see, I keep receipts. And you want to play that game with me, we fine. But the world needs to just understand I'm going to be professional. And I'm never going to violate my professional ethics. I'm not going to impugn my name, that of ESPN and Walt Disney, SiriusXM, or anybody else. But in the same breath, there's nothing wrong with telling the truth. I don't like his ass. And he don't like me. And I'm good with it.
Now, this next portion, Stephen A. is going to go a little bit more in depth and talk about how LeBron also called out Brian Windhorst on the show and saying that's the closest he ever came to pulling a stunt like he did running up to Stephen A. Smith's face. And a lot of people did point out Kevin Gates came there. He was a lot more disrespectful than Stephen A. because he was talking directly to Savannah. And, I guess LeBron knew that it would have been something. Like Kevin Gates wouldn't have just stood there like Stephen A. Smith and kept it professional. But also Stephen A. was getting his money, or he had just signed, or that was his new contract was just starting. And he walked up. Now Stephen A. put a little sauce on it saying, he would have punched him if LeBron would have done anything. But, let's get into what Stephen A. says about how LeBron runs up on black men but won't run up on a white man like that.
How do you expect people to receive when you do say something negatively about him, though?
Honestly speaking, I apologize for saying this. I don't give a shit. I don't care. Because my record speaks for itself. I got 30 years. I got 30 plus years in this business. A lot of talking about LeBron happened in the aftermath of all of that. I talked about you when you went to the playoffs. I talked about you when y'all asses got smoked in 5 games by the Minnesota Timberwolves. You know what I'm saying? When Ant-Man walked outside the Crypto.com arena, walked down the streets talking about you. You understand what I'm saying? I said, I talked about the Lakers and the moves that they made when they extended Luka. I talked about when you opted in and I gave you your respect and your compliments when it's due. I've done more for him than he'd ever do for me. I've accomplished a lot in this business. Okay? I'm a black man that's done it. I come from the streets of Hollis, Queens, New York City. I grew up poor. Government cheese and bread and all of that stuff, the kind of stuff these athletes talk about what they went through, I went through. And I ain't have y'all game, but I'm living well. I made it. I did my thing. You understand? Do you hear them giving us our respect? No, because the mentality is, who the hell are y'all? You see what I'm saying? Why? Because even if we're complimentary about you, excessively so, we're a pawn, we're a stooge. You know what? You got us in our pocket. You got us in your pocket. If we're critical of you, we haters. All right? We can't win. Well, guess what? I found a way to win anyway. So this is what I've done. And so, what you see is a different culture. And that's a conversation we never get into it really about in professional sports, but primarily the NBA, where you got cats and they go at NBA players and stuff like that. Like, you bring up LeBron. You ever see LeBron go at a white boy? It's called what it is. You ever see him do that? You saw him come at me. Closest you ever came to seeing him do something like that was when he called out Brian Windhorst. What you calling out Brian Windhorst for? The man covered you since junior high school and has praised you repeatedly. And you used the Pat McAfee situation to go at him. You understand? And that's the only time you ever seen LeBron James, really go at somebody white. I'm going to call it what it is. So we understand each other. I understand a lot more. And I'll tell you, I'll divulge to my boy and his boy right here, when I did my monologue for 17 and a half, 18 minutes, the day after he decided to go on Pat McAfee's show, all right? And I said what I said and meant every syllable of what I said. Immediately after, I was informed that we won't be hearing more from him about me. That's what I thought.
Now, I just wanted to show those clips. Now, he also talks about LeBron not being the GOAT in his eyes, him painting Stephen A. Smith as someone who just doesn't like Bronny when the issue was really about him and LeBron directly. And he talks about some other things in there. And what I will say is some people probably could refute that and come back at Stephen A. and say, for years, you talked about black players and you had things to say about people who were up for contracts, and your word, and the perception, you may think it's just debate television, but your voice had gotten so powerful in the media space that it did have some influence on coaches. You start talking about certain players, it can affect their money and what they can get. Even if they were to sign, you may have taken a few million off just based off of the perception when these players still may have something to offer. So people could punch back at Stephen A like that, but I think Stephen A and LeBron, I think the whole issue the whole time has been against them. I don't think it's so much about what he said about Bronny. He said as a father, stop this. And, LeBron came up there and had that to say about him. But, um, you know, I think it's been some things that was said. I showed in the earlier video back when I believe him and Skip was still together after the decision is some of the things he said after that that has started this coming down the road, for a long time. This ain't what we seeing on the surface now. We're seeing, the lava coming out the volcano at this point. But there were so many things brewing beneath the surface prior that this moment was always going to happen, was always going to blow up. You got Stephen A., his voice, his influence, him being a part of many different media companies. The deal he did with Sirius, shout out to that. Him getting into the political space. We seeing he getting some backlash with Jasmine Crockett with that. However, I don't think in that space, I don't think you gonna please everybody. So he's got to go about it the way he's gonna go about it. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. But as far as LeBron James, there's going to be other criticisms about how this season is starting. LeBron taking a relaxed approach in his rehab. They're basically saying he's sitting back looking to see what the team going to do and if he's going to waste any time out there playing with them. And so we'll see what Stephen A. has to say, but we know you don't like him. So anything either one of y'all say about each other, we can't take it as fair because it's personal. But I think Stephen A., he was going at Kyrie, he was going at some of these other athletes. I think now he's in a situation publicly where these players are coming right back at him and they're humiliating him. And he wasn't aware or just didn't care about how much he could humiliate other players in the past, whenever you didn't have social media and all these avenues to respond right away. So that's what I would say about it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till next time. Peace.